Welcome back to my top 50 Danganronpa characters. You know the drill, let's get straight into number 36. Kind of ironic that the first victim and the first killer are right next to each other, huh? My favourite part about Leon is that he has some of the funniest sprites and expressions in the game, and he's not generally a bad character. However, he was the first killer in the game, and his crime wasn't particularly good. Mainly because him being the killer was obvious. Due to one fact, it was obvious from the beginning. I also have very mixed feelings about him as a character and his backstory. I think it's cool the franchise has at least one character who would rather have a different talent than what he has, but the very fact that he would rather be a musician just for the sake of impressing a girl is something I've always found controversial. His death was the first game's most violent execution, and it was the first execution, which was a great way to prepare the player for the future. Leon, you may not be the best, but like I said with Sayaka, you're not too bad. Toko Fukawa is hands down the first game's most dislikable character initially, even more so than Byakuya Togami. She had certain moments that changed this throughout the game and made her more entertaining, the two most notable being her yandere love towards Togami, which was funny to me, and the fact she has a split personality, of which one half is a serial killer that targets handsome men. There are two reasons that she's this high on the list at least. The first is that while Toko has an ugly personality, Genocide Jack is hilarious. Her dialogue, particularly in the first game, is always laughable. The other reason is that Toko's actions and character in the spin-off Ultra Despair Girls really redeemed her, particularly in her relationship with Komaru Naegi, that game's protagonist. And okay, just in case people don't want to count them as the same character, Genocide Jack gets an honourable mention. After I finished Danganronpa 1, when I began to look into Danganronpa 2, one of the factors that initially put me off the game was that Byakuya Togami, a character that was great in the original game, was now incredibly fat. It also was a shock that he died in the first chapter, and I thought, what a waste. But eventually I realised that he was actually a guy disguised as Togami, not the real Togami. And when that happened, I re-evaluated my opinion of him and got into him a little more. I realised that his desire to protect his classmates from Monokuma was admirable, as was his relationship with Ryota Mitarai in the anime, how he was always concerned with his health and well-being while posing as him in class. He also makes it clear to the real Togami in Ultimate Talent Development Plan that his appearance isn't personal, just that he doesn't know his own identity, making him an enigma. Rantaro is here because he's possibly the most interesting of all the characters who die first. I mean, he's compared to the Ultimate Imposter and Sayaka, for God's sake. Throughout the whole game, even after he's dead in the first chapter, it's unclear what Rantaro's talent actually is, but when it's discovered, it throws the whole story on its head. He is the ultimate survivor, the one who won the last killing game. This is the first sign that everything that the player knows up to this point may not be what it seems. As a character though, outside of the plot, Rantaro is interesting in his own way. He's supposedly adventuring around the world in the hopes of finding his 12 lost sisters, which sounds ridiculous, but it shows that despite the initial mistrust he had for everyone, he really is kind and compassionate towards others. He's also got some freaky sprites. Wow, go figure. The ultimate robot, the character who has one of the most obscure and obscene talents in the entire series, is one of the most boring characters. I'll be blunt and brutally blunt at that. I really did not care for Kibo at the beginning of V3, or for most of the game for that matter. For being the ultimate robot, he seemed very uninteresting, and he suffered from the same curse of having a trait that got old fast. like Anji's Atua and Tenko's degenerate male. In his case, how he was always calling people out on being robophobic. However, by the end of the game, there are a lot of twists and turns with him at the centre, like how he becomes the ultimate hope robot and how he blows up the school and kills everyone, and his sacrifice at the end brought him full circle. However, he generally lacks in traits that would make him a good character, which is why he's this far down, but because of how he redeemed his character at the end, that's why it's enough to land him up this high on the list. Need I remind you who this character is? Now that my awful puns are out of the way, this character was originally going to be much further down on the list, below Leon and Sayaka and Toko and stuff like that. And I seriously regret putting him there, which is why he's now all the way up here. Nekomaru is awesome. The really tall and muscly characters in Danganronpa are more often than not really cool characters. And while he may be my least favourite of the three, at least in the games, Nekomaru is no exception to this rule. His backstory as to how he became the ultimate team manager is incredibly sad, yet great one. His relationship with Akane throughout the game and how he tried to make her a better person, even going as far as to sacrifice his life for her, is an incredibly good part of Danganronpa 2's plot. Him being brought back as a robot was a bit weird, but it became an essential part of the game's fourth case, which is one of my favourite cases in the whole series. And we did just cover Kibo, so meh. Prepare to be amazed, fall to your knees. It's Himiko Yumeno, the ultimate mage. Or, more accurately, the ultimate magician, but still. Himiko is one of the more entertaining characters in V3. Like Gundam before her, she seems to be in her own little world of fantasy. For the first two parts of the game, Himiko doesn't take the killing game seriously and sees everything as an annoyance, particularly Tenko, who obsesses over her. This is why I didn't like her originally, because she didn't seem to fully appreciate what was going on. However, eventually she comes to realise that Tenko means well and that she's worried about her, hoping to escape with her. Himiko takes these facts in and witnesses Tenko's death immediately after. I haven't been quiet so far about the fact that Case 3 in V3 is my least favourite case in the whole series, but her change in attitude during that chapter is one of the things that made that case and chapter a little better. She's one character who survived the killing game in the end that 100% deserved to. Some people may be wondering why I put this character this high up on the list, but I have my reasons. It's Celestia Ludenberg, aka Celeste, the Danganronpa character that began Case 3 syndrome. Although, saying that, Celeste's crime in Danganronpa 1 wasn't as bad as Kyo's in V3, mainly because both her voice actresses in the English and Japanese dub did a really good job with her. Celeste was fairly interesting during her life in the killing game too. She did the whole truth versus lies enigma way before Kokichi did, which is another thing that made her case a bit more interesting. Where she falls flat also has to do with her case though. Celeste is pretty clever, particularly from being the ultimate gambler, yet she makes so many dumb mistakes in the game's third chapter. I was, however, entertained by her mood swings and sudden changes in emotion in the first game. I also kind of like how she treats everyone like crap, because we need at least one character who does that, right? Right?